back to Jack's Corner, where truth and reality have a seat at the table. I want to start this podcast off with a question to you. What is worse than bad people doing bad things? Good people doing nothing. Well, I will get into the substance of this in a minute, but the consequences is that we never fix societal problems because we are always treating the symptoms and never the root cause. But first, I want to start with the Virginia Senator Tim Kaine's remarks recently before a Senate hearing. Yes, he is one of those bad persons. Let me give you a quote from a very bad man who I have followed before he became a U.S. Senator, and that is Senator Tim Kaine. To say that he is bad really isn't strong enough. So let me give you a little background. He spent some of his time in Honduras supposedly as a missionary, but not one that was spreading the gospel, but rather heresy and a psychopathic ideology. Yes, you guessed it, communism. He was deep into liberation theology, which was communism's attempt to infiltrate the Catholic Church and give communism legitimacy and justification. Kaine has been a radical all of his life and has been in love with his Marxist roots since early on, folks. He is a bad seed. Like so many others who germinate and their first goal is leadership and power, they are like a virus with one objective: infect and destroy. Recently, Tim Kaine, in a hearing before the Senate, stated as follows, and this is a quote: "The notion that rights don't come from the laws and don't come from the government, but come from the Creator, that's what the Iranian government believes, is a theocratic regime that bases its rule on Shia law. So the statement that our rights do not come from our laws or our government is extremely troubling." Now, that was a quote from Tim Kaine. As all communists do, they deceive with extreme examples and straw man arguments. Essentially, he tried to draw a moral equivalence and parallel between a terrorist organization, that is, Iran, and the United States Declaration of Independence. It further reveals how out of touch he is with history of this country, and also how much he hates this country, as do all of those in his party, the Democrat left. As Dr. Moeller of the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary so aptly put it, if government is the author of our rights, then it can also be the destroyer of those rights. If rights are made by law, then both the rights and the laws lack independent existence from the state. Upon hearing Kaine's remarks, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas castigated Kaine upon hearing those remarks and explaining that, and I'm quoting Cruz here, "It was disturbing and showed much of where today's Democratic Party has gone wrong. That radical and dangerous notion is literally the founding principle of which the United States of America was created. And if you do not believe me, then you can believe perhaps the most prominent Virginia senator that ever lived, Thomas Jefferson, who wrote in the Declaration of Independence, 'We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.'" Folks, I can't begin to tell you, nor is there a word in the dictionary strong enough to convey to you the corruptness of Senator Kaine, who I guess would compare to the first Cain, who, as many of you will recall, was the first murderer. The senator corrupts the people with denying our foundations and then comparing us to a terrorist state. How disingenuous is that? But typical of the Democrat left. Senator Kaine's voting record is about as radical and dehumanizing as can be. People are expected to do bad things, so that is no surprise. But what is surprising and even more disgusting is that when bad people do bad things, and as I said earlier, good people do nothing about it. Folks, you simply cannot sit back, read accounts like what just happened in the Senate by Senator Kaine, and not get motivated to do something about it, regardless of whether you live in Virginia. When you have someone like Kaine, who is the epitome of a cancerous corruption, one of the things you can do is support candidates that run against him and in that state. I, for one, have donated to numerous candidates around the country when such bad actors like Kaine is running for re-election. This goes for those of you who live in red states and your conservative candidate is pretty well assured of re-election. That gives you an opportunity to do your bit to remove these candidates and these radical candidates from offices who are in other states. Remember, their votes in Washington affects you, so you can't just sit back and say, well, that's not your problem. Oh, yes, it is. So you cannot ignore them simply because they are not running for election in your state. If you are in a red state, then that just gives you an opportunity to do something good elsewhere. So don't miss that opportunity. Senator Kaine is a direct reflection of all of his Democrat left colleagues in the U.S. Senate. And this is not just gross extrapolation because they vote unanimously. There is no free thinkers in the Democrat left party. There used to be, but the radical left took over and purged them. Senator Kaine has proven, as has the rest of the Democrat left, that they want to be the ones who give you your rights, and thus who also have the power to disenfranchise you of those same rights. Truly, they want to be your God. That's why your forefathers said that your inalienable rights are from God and not from corrupt men, like Senator Kaine and his colleagues. These people want to totally control you and have control over your lives, and you must fight them. Now, I have given you the need, the cause, and the purpose for you to take action and how to do it. So let's go to another bad person at this point, Senator Elizabeth Warren. There are many examples of her total detachment from reality, that is psychosis, that maybe God won't have time enough to examine them all on Warren's Judgment Day. But I will give you one of the most recent. Recently, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert Kennedy, who is also over the CDC, who was called into a Senate hearing. And if ever there was a moment in time that could tell you in the clearest terms how corrupt the Democrat left is and give you every reason to do whatever you could to defeat them, it was in that hearing, which you can watch online. And folks, I really recommend it. You have to watch this. It'll tell you everything you need to know about the Democrat left. Not one Democrat would allow Secretary Kennedy to give an answer to the questions they posed to him. Every one of the Democrats filibustered and talked over Kennedy so that you couldn't hear his answers. And they were very important answers that you needed to hear. These were answers critically important for you and your health. These demons did not want you to hear the truth. The Democrats are always talking about how they want to follow the science, but not when it doesn't fit their narrative. We all remember and suffered through the COVID mandates and how people lost their jobs and their businesses if they did not get the COVID vaccine, which was unproven and experimental in the first place. The United States, who has only 4% of the world's population, had 20% of the COVID deaths. Think about that. And as you will recall, President Biden and the Democrats told you that, well, if you get the shot, you won't get COVID. That was a lie, and they knew it. But to make things worse, while they were requiring you to take this dangerous shot, they let 10 million people cross our border who had not been vaccinated, and they weren't required to get the vaccination. This is the kind of hypocrisy that really deserves jail time, folks, and the people need to start demanding real accountability. Vaccines, yes, can be good, and there have been some out there that have been proven safe over decades, but they were not allowed on the market until their safety had been established, such as measles and the polio vaccines. Let me give you an example of why testing and safety precautions are necessary. Decades ago, mothers were giving birth to children without arms or legs. In fact, it became an epidemic, and it was eventually traced to a certain medication. The pictures are horrendous, and what the people went through was devastating and heartbreaking, an emotion the Democrats lack. We have needed someone like Secretary Kennedy to stand up to the pharmaceuticals, who in some respects are really controlling your government because of the millions that they pour into our political campaigns, like Senator Elizabeth Warren's. Senator Warren, who's a senator from Massachusetts, was one of the most corrupt and psychotic senators on the Democrat side that has taken over $10 million from pharmaceuticals since she began her career and time in the Senate. As you will recall, Her nickname is Pocahontas because she lied about her Indian heritage so that she could get placement and special treatment at a university. Her whole life has been a lie, and she's never stopped lying to herself and to you. Personally, during the pandemic, I rejected any COVID vaccinations and am probably alive today because of it. Unfortunately, 2 of my friends died within days of taking the shot. As I just said, America's response in corrupt, leftist-controlled Health and Human Services Agency gave us the greatest numbers of deaths than any other country during that time. Remember how you were locked down and the country was nearly shut down? Sweden wasn't locked down, and they had the best results of all. On various rankings, the United States is one of the unhealthiest countries in the world, and childhood diseases and health issues are rampant, such as autism. Many of you have heard about how red dyes in foods cause cancer, and the list goes on. And as so many of you know, it is difficult to get big corporations to change their ways because they are too focused on the bottom line, and the Democrat left and their allies in many of our governmental agencies have no allegiance to the people, only their leftist overseers. Secretary Kennedy has been coming to America's defense, and he's been viciously attacked, and we need to come to his defense. Now, a lot of the Democrat left is disingenuously telling you that if the CDC does not recommend something, like a medication, then you can't get it. That's a lie. What Elizabeth Warren wants is for those recommendations to be made so that she and her other Democrat allies can force mandates upon the people. She cares nothing about you, your health, or the consequences of the medications you take. All she is interested in is power and re-election and controlling your lives. There were other Democrat left senators who defamed Kennedy, calling him names, shouting him down, and trying to keep his answers from being heard by you. I implore you to watch just 30 minutes of that hearing. In fact, it is a great motivator for you to do everything you can and in your power to remove these people from power because they are a threat to your life and liberty. Never forget what they did to you and your children during the pandemic. Now, some other senators of disrepute of whom you should take note is Senator Lujan of New Mexico. He was a glaring example of incompetence, people. His feigned outrage at Kennedy exposed his profound ignorance and stupidity in the questions he asked and shutting down Kennedy from answering. The same went with Senator Bennett of Colorado. Folks, let me summarize this segment by saying that the conduct of the Democrat senators at the hearing of Health Secretary Kennedy was tantamount to criminality, and these people need to be held accountable. The way you do that is to educate yourselves by listening to the hearing, and you will be outraged such that you will never trust them again, and you will work to defeat them. Now, the next target I have today is, what does crime in our cities and the Democrat left have in common? Everything. 50 of our largest cities have been under the dominance and control of Democrats for the last 50 years. Folks, that's unforgivable. Our cities are crumbling and crime rates are off the charts, and the Democrats' answers to that is, well, just get used to it. Or they will tell you that crime is down even in the face of multiple murders every week. The Democrats have made a determination that there is simply always going to be crime, so we just have to tolerate. This is because not only are the Democrats corrupt, but they have no solutions. Remember, they told you that the borders couldn't be controlled, but Trump did it in 60 days. We heard them say that they give the same excuses on crime in the cities. But Trump took care of D.C. in 10 days after he called in the National Guard. And D.C. had one of the highest crime-ridden rates and murder rates in the country, if not the world. Then there is Chicago. Yet Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson continue to refuse any help from Trump or the calling in of the National Guard. Yet over the Labor Day weekend, nearly 80 people were either murdered or shot. And they say that crime's coming down? Yet the Democrats will tell you that crime is under control or at record lows, or that they need more money to fight crime. which money will just basically end up in the pockets of Democrat politicians or businesses. It will never accomplish anything, just like it has not accomplished anything for the last 50 years. So here's what you can do, and I'm going to liken this to just as what President Trump did in signing executive orders and implementing tariffs around the world. The American people can start by signing their own executive orders, so to speak, by refusing to finance and support those who are destroying our country. In my podcast, I not only tell you what the problem is and identify the real criminals in political office, but I tell you how to go about fixing it. Just like many of you punished Bud Light over the transvestite Dylan Mulvaney, that fiasco that destroyed the brand, the Bud Light brand. You have a bigger voice than you think and that you know. So you need to go after the companies and where they are headquartered, and the states and the cities, states like Illinois and California, New York, where billions of dollars are paid out by corporations to the corporate leaders that are making your life so miserable. So again, you have the power. And just like Trump is signing executive orders, imposing tariffs, you can do the same. So the surest way to get the cities and states under control is through financial pressure. Take away their money. Stop financing what you hate. Now, back to my question of what is worse than bad people doing bad things. It's good people doing nothing. Let's get into it. So here's my last example of such outrage that if this doesn't strike a responsive chord in you, then you must be part of the Walking Dead. A few days ago in Charlotte, North Carolina, a young white female Ukrainian refugee who had escaped the travesty and damage that's going on in her country, she was going home after work after her job at a pizza restaurant. Folks, I want you to watch this video. Even as horrible as it is, the video is of her being stabbed to death by a dreadlocked, hoodie-wearing black man who had been arrested 14 times prior and released. Within 30 seconds of this young, beautiful girl sitting down on the bus, this monster pulls a knife out and stabs her in the neck, killing her. He walks off the bus with blood dripping off the knife and onto the floor of the bus. Who is the monster here? It's those in power. It is the judges, the prosecutors. And here's the icing on the cake. The black female mayor of Charlotte, Vi Lyles, another toxic liberal, showed no emotion or sympathy for the death of this young girl. Instead, the mayor said effectively she did not want to villainize the perpetrator, who has been arrested, like I said, 14 times. Here's a quote from the mayor. I want to be clear that I am not villainizing those who struggle with their mental health or those who are unhoused. Mental health disease is just that, a disease like any other that needs to be treated with the same compassion, diligence, and commitment as cancer or heart disease. Also, those who are unhoused are more frequent the victim of crimes and not the perpetrators. Too many people who are on the street need a safe place to sleep and wrap around services that lift them up. We as a community must do better for those members of our community who need help and have no place to go. That was her statement. That was her quote. Mayor Lyles was rightfully and roundly condemned for her woke comments, calling for compassion for the deranged vagrant who viciously murdered this young girl on the train in the city last month. The people of Charlotte should be embarrassed that they elected Lyles and be outraged at her statement and the attitude toward crime, and should be demanding her resignation. Lyles has no plans to make the community safe. She's just another identity marker for the Democrat left as the first black female mayor of Charlotte. Well, that's certainly no credential for competency, is it? Lyles is now singing a different tune and calling for action after the fact, action that should have happened a lot earlier. Folks, bad people do bad things, but what is worse is those who are in power who practice malfeasance and are never held to account. So what is worse? It is good people doing nothing. Now, I'm not going to get into the theological side of this argument where we are taught that there are no good people. which is so true because it's those who are heading toward a bad destiny. But putting that aside, if you have any virtue or goodness in you at all, then you must stop toxically tolerating and supporting the likes of this Mayor Lyles and the Democrat left who destroy societies. Think of your children. Folks, this could have been your child coming home from a starter job while working their way through college, and their life is snuffed out because of the really, really bad people like Mayor Lyles who are in office today. Only you can stop the insanity, and it starts with where and how you spend your money and who you vote for. Well, folks, that's it for this session. Remember, you are the cure, and don't be the cause for bad people getting by with bad things. Until later, I'm Jack Richardson for Jack's Corner.